I don't know how many of y'all remember, but Kristi Noem, while governor of South Dakota, was banned from the tribal lands. 9 different tribes banned her because she said that these tribes were having to deal with cartels on that land. Well, recently, another tribe has come out with the state of emergency. This is like their seventh one. Uh, Rosebud Sioux tribe. It's the tribe's third emergency declaration in 6 years, as members contend with meth and other illicit drug use, trafficking, gun violence, several other things. And it's not, there are 9 tribes in, or tribal lands in South Dakota, and all 9 of them banned Kristi Noem because of her linking all of this violence and everything to cartels that are getting treatment or good treatment by the tribal elders, according to her. Now, the tribes are saying, oh, it's coming because the federal government's not giving them enough money, but let's first take a look at the current state of emergency.
Howdy, y'all. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. What we have here is a channel to communicate. I want you folks to be thinking by the time you leave my videos. Why? Because I'm tired of people talking via what other people tell them to think. So, watch my video and enjoy the chance to think for yourself.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The president of the Rosebud Sioux tribe has declared a state of emergency.
According to the declaration, drug use and trafficking and gun-related violence are threatening public safety and health on the Rosebud Reservation.
In our top story tonight, KELOLAND's Kelly Volk looks at the declaration and how a federal prosecutor is reacting.
Drugs and guns continue to contribute to problems on the Rosebud Reservation, according to an emergency declaration signed by Tribal President Kathleen Woodenknife this week. The declaration calls on the U.S. government and multiple federal agencies to honor their obligations to provide sufficient law enforcement resources. Allison Ramsdell is the U.S. Attorney for South Dakota. Her office, which falls under the Department of Justice, works with its federal partners to prosecute certain crimes in Indian country in federal court. Ramsdell isn't surprised by the declaration.
We know from working in Indian country, we work there every day, that violent crime is on the rise, that drug trafficking, like everywhere in South Dakota, is on the rise.
Ramsdell says her office is making the most of the money it's given to do its work in Indian country.
The resources we're given, money-wise, are only enough to fund 6 full-time employees. But we have made the decision to use about 18 full-time employees, the equivalent of 18 full-time employees, to work violent crime and drugs in Indian country. And we do that because we know that if we're not there, it's up to the tribes on their own, because the state can't operate in Indian country when it comes to these issues. And so that's the resources we've allocated. Would we like more? Yeah, I would like more colleagues to do this work. It's important work, and it's hard work.
Woodenknife is also calling on tribal officials, employees, and residents to play a role in keeping the reservation safe. Kelly Volk, KELOLAND News.
And KELOLAND News tried to set up an on-camera interview with the tribal president today, but the timing just didn't work out. The tribe made similar declarations last year and in 2019. KELOLAND News has received a statement from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and you can read that under this story on KELOLAND.com.
Okay, you heard that. So, the next 2, I'm going to do 2 more clips here. The first clip is going to be a look at the Pine Ridge Reservation. And then after that, I'm going to cover the story about what it took to, Kristi Noem being banned from these reservations. Okay, pardon me. I thought it was 9. It was 8. Banned from 8 reservations. So we're going to cover that story. I find it interesting that these tribes have somebody going, hey, this is what we're seeing, and they want to ban her when they should be working with her to get some of this fixed. But instead, they'd rather play politics. They'd rather beg money from the federal government and treat the person that could be helping, one of the people that could be helping them, like she's a, you know, person that's committing crimes. So, criminals and whatnot, they're getting away with way too much on these lands, and you're treating the governor like a criminal. Okay, let's see. But let me show you these two older clips.
There's an emergency on the Pine Ridge Reservation in southwest South Dakota. Violent crimes are becoming all too common, and there are not enough officers to respond. KELOLAND's Lauren Solik and Dan Santella recently visited with the tribal president, the chief of police, and people on the reservation to hear their pleas for an emergency declaration.
Oglala Sioux Tribe President Frank Starr comes out, declared a state of emergency in November, saying in his proclamation that it was because of a, quote, breakdown of law and order. The tribe has an ongoing lawsuit against the U.S. government seeking what it describes as adequate law enforcement. Court documents in this case provide a snapshot of what law enforcement is up against.
From the beginning of June until the end of August last summer, 65 calls for police assistance involved child abuse, 237 calls reported domestic violence, and 96 calls involved guns. Conversations with the president, chief of police, and tribal members all highlight the reality of what these communities face. The reservation is massive, larger than Rhode Island and Delaware combined, and the Oglala Sioux Tribe's Department of Public Safety only has 33 patrol officers to cover it all. Tribal President Frank Starr comes out, says the reality of life on the Pine Ridge Reservation dictated the need for the state of emergency.
Our situation was increasing as far as the crime, the violence, the drugs, the alcohol, everything's just snowballing into a bigger mess, and which forced me to call a state of emergency.
Starr Comes Out's declaration states that law and order have broken down because the United States government is not fulfilling its, quote, responsibilities to provide adequate law enforcement on the reservation. Tribal officials say the support they receive falls short.
The formula the government uses to fund tribes, or I should say large tribes, it just doesn't work for us.
We're not funded at the level that we should be.
By the federal government?
By the federal government.
The government only gives us 40% of the need. So, you look at that and the booming population and the high crime, we're set up for failure. And it not only affects us, but it affects our tribal courts, our corrections, our prosecution. We can't keep up with the crime rate.
The emergency declaration says Washington failing to advocate for money from Congress for tribal law enforcement is a factor in the reservation's high rates of alcoholism, suicide, murder, drug offenses, rape, and other crimes.
The state of emergency has been a long time coming.
The one thing about the state of emergency, at least you're bringing it to the forefront and saying, listen, this violence is not good. Mm-hmm. We need to address it.
Liz May, who owns and operates a grocery store in the town of Kyle, in addition to representing the area in South Dakota's House of Representatives, says there is not one single solution.
These aren't new challenges. These challenges have been ongoing for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think it's a one answer, it's not one thing. More law enforcement officers, yes, but is that going to fix it? No, that's not going to fix it, because there's a lot of underlying issues that need to be dealt with, whether it's infrastructure and the ability for people to have running water and sewer and electricity.
Tribal member Ken Hart says the emergency declaration is a positive move.
This should have been done a long time ago. I know he did right, and I know it's good.
But he questions its significance.
That emergency means nothing. We're still going to have murders. We're still going to have domestic abuse. We're still going to have elderly abuse.
Algin Young, who serves as chief of police at the Oglala Sioux Tribe's Department of Public Safety, points out that trained uniformed officers are only one piece of the complicated puzzle that is the rule of law.
I would say not only that, but in order to make them successful, you have to have a functioning court. So right now we have maybe 3-4 prosecutors to handle the call volume that we have, and 7 or 8 judges.
This was our second report in an 8-piece series we've titled Emergency and Hope on Pine Ridge.
The third report airs tomorrow, when we'll look at safety on the reservation and hear how tribal members have done what they can to stay safe and survive.
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is standing by her claim that tribal leaders in her home state are benefiting from drug cartels operating on reservations. Here's what the Republican governor told News Nation's Allie Bradley live on News Nation Now yesterday as she was visiting the southern border.
We have cartels in South Dakota right now today. I informed them that we had the cartels that had come over this border, had set up shop in South Dakota on our tribal reservations, where I have no jurisdiction, and they were operating and proliferating drugs and human trafficking from those areas.
Allie Bradley was able to get that interview during her live hit on the show. Now, those allegations are not sitting well with tribal leaders. 8 of South Dakota's 9 Native American tribes have banned or voted to ban Noem from their lands. News Nation's Brooke Schaefer joins us live. And Brooke, we know the governor just held a news conference. She's back in South Dakota. What is she saying today?
Yeah, Nicole, Governor Kristi Noem in a rare press conference moments ago, really defending her statements about cartel activity, she says, on Indian reservations, once again laying the blame on the federal government.
We believe that this federal neglect has resulted in the cartel and their affiliates moving into our reservations, an increase in overdoses, an increase in crimes and violence, a proliferation of drugs that we've seen in recent years, and even drugs and guns that are more present on our school properties.
Now, this press conference just this morning comes on the heels of the South Dakota governor's visit to the southern border yesterday, saying the same thing to News Nation's Allie Bradley in an exclusive interview. Noem saying live on News Nation, there are cartels in South Dakota right now, claiming without evidence cartels have moved their operations to South Dakota. Governor Noem alleging some tribal leaders are benefiting from cartel activity on their land. Now, the recent comments landing the governor in some hot water, now banned from 8 of the 9 reservations in her state. Noem has blamed the Biden administration for the criminal activity in her state and the southern border, and has called on tribal leaders to take action. Noem's spokesperson has said previously that they believe she still has many people who live on reservations who still support her, even though there is clear tension with tribal leaders, saying in this press conference just moments ago that instead of working with her, many tribal leaders have chosen to banish her, asking them to shift their attention from her to the supposed cartels.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
I pretty much assume that you realize my way of thinking on this. But here's what I want to know. Do you think that this is what Kristi Noem says? Do you think that this is just hey, this is what happens on tribal land? What do you think? I honestly want to hear your opinion on this. Because I'm not on those tribal lands. I've been around them. They're beautiful territory out there. I mean, it's just beautiful land out there. And I've got friends from there, and some of them have told me the same that Kristi Noem isn't off the mark on this, while others are saying that it's because the federal government has allowed it to become a socialist state on those lands. That's no joke. That's actually what I've been told. I am not agreeing or disagreeing on that. I am saying, hey, this is what's going on these lands. So they're wanting more money. Mind you, The past 4 years, the Secretary of Interior was a Native American. It's the Secretary of Interior, or I mean the Department of Interior, that takes care of these lands. So you would think that Deb Haaland, who is a Native American, would have been open to helping these tribal tribes out, these tribal lands. But you tell me, what do you think about all this? Seriously, I want to hear your opinion. My opinion's one thing, but I also want to hear your opinion. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye. So, folks, that's the story that I wanted to bring you on this video. And I just wanted to say thank you again for coming by. Hit like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff if you don't mind. Help me out. So, y'all have a good day now. Bye.